Oh.
Which one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best? 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 What's the second best?
This is Discover Crypto. My name is TJ, and every day on this channel, we show you how to make money with Bitcoin and digital assets. We've got a really good show lined up for you guys today. We're going to be looking at a Bitcoin insider calling for a $1 million Bitcoin. We've got altcoin reversal signal on the charts flashing. It's going to be really fun. I'm joined by more of our Disco fam. As you guys know, we've got Blockchain Basement. We've got BitLab Academy. DZ's out on his honeymoon right now. Josh is was texting him this morning, starting the 32-hour trek back from Dubai. But I see all of your beautiful faces here in the chat. Hit us with a GM. But a special good morning to you, Kelly and Drew. Welcome in. How are you guys feeling today?
Incredible.
Incredible.
You know, it's a beautiful day outside. Got a workout in already. I've been diving into this stable. It was going to be one of Trump's big crypto wins. Now it looks like Republicans is the first major test for them to work with Democrats on a bipartisan bill for our Stablecoin Act.
Oh, yeah.
Looks like it's going to get very contentious in the Senate. I kind of, was letting bygones be bygones since the election, but it looks like we got to go back into battle. The usual suspects, Elizabeth Warren, Chuck Schumer, are at their antics again. So we're going to be diving into that. It's not that we're done for here, but Bitcoin's here to stay. Now we got to fight for the rest of the crypto ecosystem to be here to stay on a legislative level. Very important.
Absolutely. And quick shout out to all of those on Rumble. I'm seeing your comments rolling. We are live on Rumble. We're live on X. So happy to see all of you guys here today. But yeah, break it down. What do we have going on, and is there anything people can do to participate?
Yeah, I mean, you have to reach out to your local Senate and legislature, whatever state that you live in, you need to reach out to your senator, even if they already support crypto and stablecoin legislation. Still reach out and give them your voice. I mean, this is turned. We've kind of gotten into this lull over the last 3 decades here in the United States, where we elect them and we let them do whatever they see fit. And I don't think that that's the right thing to do. We got to remember that they represent us and our wishes here in the United States, and falling behind the rest of the world when it comes to crypto and stablecoin legislation is not something we want to see happen. As the world reserve currency, it is intrinsically important to global stability to make sure that we stay at the forefront of this tech. So,
well, beyond that, it's also, I cannot believe that this technology has become a partisan issue. This should be the most anti-partisan thing ever, because this is something that it hits every tenet from both sides of the aisle, in that whether you're talking about Bitcoin banking the unbanked, there's almost 2 billion people globally that are unbanked. You also have the ability to stave off or get outside of this massive inflation we're seeing, not just in the US. We have to remember, in the US, this is the world over. Most places have hyperinflation beyond what we've seen here. We think eggs got expensive. Most people can't even transact for a piece of bread, over the course of 2 weeks, because you see how much the money, how much has been devalued out there. So when you see this, in addition to the blockchain technology making things more transparent, everybody should be getting on board with this. And I love the governor of Arizona having vetoed the Bitcoin reserve bill for Arizona, actually making accusations that the Republicans are turning it into political theater. It's like, ma'am, you are center stage of this political theater, because these things should not be held hostage because you want something else voted on to get this thing that serves all people everywhere, every race, every creed, every color, no matter your economic strata. This is the technology of the future.
Absolutely, man. Really, on the market watch this morning, things aren't too bad. We're sitting here at $94,200. We did have a little bit of a momentary snap down to about 93.5 on Bitcoin. But then we had some interesting news break. India saying that the trade talks with the United States are actually going extremely well. This came out, the chart pump, but Kelly saw something on the more TA-based side. that might have played into this pump too. Kelly, what did you see on the lower time frames for Bitcoin this morning? What are we looking at in terms of for everyone trading out there or looking at entry points here?
Absolutely. So we always have to remember there are a number of different time frames we can look at. This is the total. Let's actually get into Bitcoin here. So of course we've got this nice pump to the upside, little bit of movement here. We've been calling over on BitLab Academy streams as well here on Discover Crypto over the last few days for a very regularly sort of expected move to the downside. But I know there's a lot of players out there that are still trying to capture the smaller moves. So if we zoom down here and get super degen land, looking at the 3-minute chart here, I want you to notice this is where you make the big bucks right now. This is where you stress yourself out beyond belief. But look at the signals. We see the price action falling low, 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 all lower lows. And at the same time period on the RSI, the most basic free signal each and every one of you can use. Just come up here, click on this little button right here, type in RSI, boom, you got it. Quick little tip for you there. But when you see price falling like this and you see the strength, the lows of the strength getting higher and higher, that's underlying pressure. This is known as a bullish divergence. And this signaled that we might get a little bit of a bounce here. And this is exactly what we got. This is not necessarily that small of a bounce. If you measure that up just on the 3-minute chart, that's about a 1.4% move to the upside in a very short period of time. The question is going to be, and we're going to dive into this here in just a little bit, is this going to hold and can have a little bit more continuation up? Or is this going to be a little bit of a fake out to the upside before we have a little bit more wiggle room to the downside? But I do think that bigger move, and we're going to dive into this in a bit, I do think that bigger move on altcoins, on Bitcoin, on all of it is setting up for that next leg to the upside. So let's take advantage of this opportunity if it comes. But I'll throw it back to you. We'll dive in more to some TA in a bit.
Ethereum upgrades coming up. We're going to be talking about the Ethereum upgrade and, really the outlook for altcoins as well as top indicators, because we have, an industry insider. It's, someone that knows quite a bit about Bitcoin and market structure in general that's come out and said $1 million Bitcoin is coming this cycle. Kind of a crazy thing to say. We're going to be listening to his words on this, but currently we are, I'm a little bit hesitant because we still are sitting between the lower CME gap at 92,000 to 92.5, as well as the upper band CME gap, which is still sitting there at about 96.5 to about 97.5. So about $1,000 gap. And this is a much larger gap than the one below it. I'm being a little bit careful about it. I've had a lot of fun already trading Bitcoin from, I think it was like,
go back to that real quick. I just want to look at it again.
Absolutely.
I want to see
this is where we're stuck in between right now.
So that gap, that lower gap is what level? That green box is
this
what?
green box is 92,000 to 92.5.
Yeah.
A lot of one's 96.5 to 97.5. But then you look at the liquidity, and we are essentially sandwiched in between no man's land. I mean, there's a pretty good amount above us here at 95.2 and below us at 93.3. And we did almost grab all of this liquidity this morning. I would have been more inclined to put my next set of longs in had I seen all of this liquidity grabbed up on the downside. But really where I'm looking at this on the, stops, where is Bitcoin running into resistance? I got into this, general excitement about longing Bitcoin once we fell down to that $75,000 spot. The volume nodes have shown us on the visible volume profile range time and time again on the way back up where the stops are going to be. And these are essentially shelves of previous price action. I did clip the last trade I had in at about 97, just because this volume node was massive, expecting that little bit of turbulence. And really what I'm looking for is to hold above $90,000.
Real quick on that note, for those that do like to trade, that are trading, we do have, make sure you sign up with our LBank link and get in our UID. That is how we're going to be onboarding people into the Discord. And they're actually about to start some new volume-based rewards where basically if you're opening and closing trades, they're going to give you free money. So,
and on that note, people don't realize how easy and how quick you actually accumulate a large amount of volume. So when you see these competitions on LBank that we're doing, and it might say $1,000 volume, that you will find that is minuscule. When you see 20,000 or even 100,000, even $500,000 in volume. I know, TJ, you've been trading with an account that had under $3,000. And how much volume did you trade?
I was gonna say $1 million is actually pretty low because you got to remember you take a $1,000 trade on 30x. That's a $30,000 trade. So it's pretty easy to take, I think I did a couple $1 million in volume in, 5 to 8 days trading.
It
Yeah,
adds
you
up
do
quick.
you do 3 trades on $3,000 on your multiple, and you'll be over $100,000 a day like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's what I'm here for. I'm loving the volatility, and really, it's pretty clear on the visible volume profile range. There are some solid levels to be looking at. And really, the bigger thing in my mind over the past few days here, just getting into the start of the week, is this battle that's building up within the Senate over this stablecoin legislation. This is from Politico. This came out yesterday on the Capitol agenda. The crypto chaos hitting the Senate. What's going on is on top of the tax cut mega bill that Trump's putting into place, or trying to put into place. His priorities they're talking about are being in jeopardy on Capitol Hill. Republicans have this unexpected crypto problem as well. Democrats, led by Senator Ruben Gallego out of Arizona, of course, said this weekend that they would oppose the GOP-led legislation that would carve out new rules for so-called stablecoins. Talking about Democrats, a surprising shift for many. This is honestly not surprising for me. These are, Democrats waiting for their time to strike when the bill finally comes in front of them and they can actually work together to shoot down anything that Trump wants to do. It's now an urgent problem for the Senate Republicans, who are trying to expedite a floor vote on this bill by late May this month to give Trump a big, beautiful crypto bill to sign soon. And this crypto fight is one of the first major tests for Republicans and their ability to work across the aisle on the second Trump era. Now, obviously, the first Trump era was very polarizing. Now we're in the situation where I feel like, Trump won the election, and it kind of took a backseat, thought in my mind, the bipartisan nature and the aggravation of the Democrats. They were losing a lot of power, but they still do have these key seats and some key people pulling the strings within the Senate, like Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren. We cannot forget about those positions and those people that still have that power. Unlike budget reconciliation, this GOP senator need Democrats to overcome a Senate filibuster to actually make this happen. And Elizabeth Warren's trying to stop her colleagues from following the lead of a Democrat, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand out of New York, in her stablecoin bill that's actually led by a Democrat co-sponsor.
Yeah, that's what's frustrating, is this bill had a ton of support. It's very bipartisan. It seemed like everybody was behind it, and it was kind of like, if you are for progress, you're going to be for digital assets in the United States. This is one of the major ones, some clarity around stablecoins that needs to get done first before a couple of these other ones follow suit. So to see them now coming out kind of at the, not quite the final hour, but close to decision time, trying to say everybody like, block this, kill this, get rid of this. Like, they're just trying to slow things down. If you guys don't know this, Elizabeth Warren, she's paid by the banks. This bill is bad for banks.
And that's what it's about, isn't it?
It's 100% what it's about.
Right.
It's about doing what she's paid to do. And unfortunately, she is not there representing the best interests of the people. She kind of uses that facade, but the truth is she's there representing big banks' interest
100%.
in Washington.
100%.
And it's crazy because stablecoins will actually end up, and they've already become, but they're going to end up becoming more so a major effect on the resilience of the U.S. dollar's deployment globally. Over, rather than the U.S., everybody this argument about the U.S. dollar is going to die. Sure, I do think that's the case, but I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetime. One, and two, if we don't get stablecoin legislation in place, because the world is going more digital, then we stand threat of other countries having stablecoins, or even CBDCs start to take precedent. So it's really a national security interest to get stablecoin legislation in place. And also, we've got that, what was it, the SAB 121 bill that was rescinded regarding banks, and
See, and that was weird though, right? Because Schumer was actually okay with that. He actually, that was when Chuck Schumer kind of showed a little bit of ability to work with Republicans on this. Now he's flipping the script, Kelly.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous, because we're already seeing that the likelihood, the trend that's moving forward this year, that into, I would say, by summer next year, 2026, I think we're going to see an entirely different financial landscape, especially in the US. And that's going to sort of bleed over into the rest of the world. And that is the embracing, the needed integration of blockchain technology, of stablecoin access, Bitcoin and crypto related products and services that are, allowed and deployed from banks to people. Now, on the one hand, I do think that basically self-custody is going to be the most needed access point for people to participate in the market. But the truth is, the large majority of people don't have that mindset to be their own financial sovereign. I think everybody should. Let's all educate and make sure that we don't remain ignorant and being under the thumb of banks and governments. But the access point, I think, over the next 5 years, 8 years is going to be dominated by people having Bitcoin products and services that are deployed by financial institutions. So let's make sure it's done in the right way. And the fact that there's a limitation or, the reneging on, getting real access on both sides of the aisle in terms of stable coins and Bitcoin and all these things, it should not be, if Trump likes it, this is bad. It should be, this is good for the people. Let's make sure that we can get this deployed.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of self-custody, we are big advocates of that here on this channel. We have an actual special promo code for you guys to get 20% off of an Arculus wallet.
20% off now?
20%.
There you
We
go.
just wanted to take a quick second to shout out our sponsor, Arculus. They are a cold storage hardware wallet, helps you secure all of your digital assets for the future. Just tap this thing to the back of your phone and boom, you're in. We wouldn't be able to do this without them, but also wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, the Disco fam. You've supported us a lot over the years. If you want to support the channel now, just use the code DC20. It gets you 20% off this card. It's the #1 way you can support this channel going forward. Thank you for your support. We'll see you at the top.
Sitting here earnestly shocked. There's 20%.
Yeah, he's been thinking it was 10% this whole time. So yeah, DC20 gets you 20% off. Get yourself in our hardware wallet today.
And I see the chat going on. It's like, and TJ's right. Currently, these representatives truly don't work for the people. But we can flip the script on that. You can be loud enough, you can be in their face enough, and you can be seen enough. We still have the ability to reach out to these senators and get them to understand that we, the people in crypto, and really anyone that supports self-sovereignty and the advancement of the US dollar to outpace the technological innovation of every single other fiat currency, reach out to these senators here. We have obviously Chuck Schumer, and then we have Mark Warner out of Virginia, Lisa Blunt Rochester out of Delaware, and Andy Kim out of New Jersey.
Drew,
what's that?
I got to just bring it up because it makes me laugh every time I think about it. Chuck Schumer the other day in a press conference, absolutely ragging on Trump for the perceived low poll that he had, how bad it is, blah, blah. And then somebody asked him in that same conversation, so Chucky boy, you have a 17% poll approval rating. Well, polls don't really matter. No. Those things are going to change. Get them.
Yeah. And the same thing happens with the conversation here is that, Elizabeth Warren, this is my take on it, is she is upset about Trump and World Liberty Fi and the USD1. It is now number 57 by market cap. USD1 is breaking onto the scene. It'll be interesting what organizations, dare I say countries, are moving forward with this. World Liberty Fi and the movements behind Trump's family has also probably ignited that aggravation with Never Trump Democrats that essentially see this as if you want to ban crypto just because Trump's involved with crypto, why don't we ban real estate too, right? Because he owns some real estate. Maybe we can ban Nancy Pelosi from trading stocks.
Yes, I was just about to say we need to ban every great investment that's happened in the last 20 years because Nancy Pelosi somehow has turned $175,000 a year salary into a $200 million purse of just so much so that people in the House of Representatives, people in Congress, they have a bill out right now called the Pelosi Act. The acronym, I forget what it breaks down to, but specifically identifying that it's like, listen, there's so much corruption going on in our elected officials. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, and Adam Schiff is still in the mix here. In late April, Warren and Adam Schiff, along with 7 other lawmakers, called on federal officials to address concerns surrounding the Trump meme coin, citing the potential risk of bribery and corruption. But also, they're highlighting this: the USD1, the stable coin, the Trump-linked stable coin, and their reported potential massive investments or money laundering, scary stuff coming from the United Arab Emirates for Trump's World Liberty Fi. It's a very interesting time to be alive. And, just for context, this is what I really look at. Joe Biden was in for like nearly 50 years. Chuck Schumer, 44 years. Mitch McConnell, 40 years. Nancy Pelosi's been in for just about 40 years. But Donald Trump at 4 years and 3.5 months and Elon Musk at 3.5 months are the entire problem. Really? Right?
That is interesting.
When you think about it in that context, because Trump's been around for quite some time, so has Elon, but they haven't been on the political aisle for a lot of decades that these past people, and some of them still calling the shots within the Senate, have been part of the system. And really, this is the changing of the guard. This is where everything is shifting into this new reserve currency design. We have to advance. If we don't, we stand risk of being outpaced without conflict. If we don't rein the control back in with massive conflict, and we just let prosperity and advancement go on around the United States without being involved in crypto, we will lose that spot as a world reserve currency. Likely not going to happen because we just resort to, warfare anyway.
Yeah. And the biggest blessing I would say we have through all of this is technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they can't fight progress forever. Obviously, the system is working very well for those within the system. And that's something I've shared the other day that somebody says, oh, the system isn't working. Like, no, actually, the system's working exactly as intended. It's just not intended to work for you.
TJ, would you say that the progressives are fighting progress?
I would say big government
that's
fights progress. That's the
unfortunate.
thing. Like, and I see chat, like, I'm not on any one side. I do not think Republicans are blameless. I do not, I'm more of in a libertarian party, but even, they've never been able to get anything done either. So, but I am a fan of seeing less government and less government involvement. Shrinking of the government is something I get excited about. I'm not sure it's actually happening. I know there's a lot of headlines around that, but it's not like spending has actually gone down at all. So, but technology can fix all of that, and they really can't contain it. When the internet came out, they've been trying to keep their arms around the internet for a long time. They're losing control. Hillary Clinton famously saying, "Oh, we're losing control of this." They're losing control of information with freedom of speech at a faster rate than ever, and now they're losing control of money, which has been one of the main ways they've held everything under control. Whether it's other nations, other businesses, other individuals, political dissidents. Money and no privacy and no having to use the banking rails has been one of the number one ways that they use control over people, and they're completely losing that right now, which is part of why they're so desperate to get the stablecoin bill done. I think they will, because it's another attempt at maintaining some level of control. They can't stop this train when it comes to crypto. Like the cat is out of the bag when it comes to Bitcoin, and when it comes to Tether, when it comes to stable coins in general. Like they can't stop it. So now they have to adapt or die. And some people don't see that. Some people are trying to not adapt, and they would essentially get left behind and killed or die. Like figuratively, not literally.
Well, and it's a battle legislatively to make this happen. In one of the states that I was most bullish on moving forward with the bill, they had a little bit of FUD come out about it. The Florida Bitcoin reserves, and I saw this from Bitcoin Law's state reserve race, that both of them had failed. Legislator adjourned in 2025 session on May 2nd without passage of this Bitcoin state reserve. But here's Samuel Arms with a little bit of clarification.
Friend of the channel.
Huge friend of the channel, great guy. And is he going to Bitcoin Vegas?
He'll be in Vegas. Yeah, he's actually he's been with Josh in Dubai, so he's traveling back with him right now. So I believe, as far as I know, he'll be in Vegas.
And he's such a smart guy and so politically active. He's out there actually helping shape the Florida this bill, and he calls it out here.
Yeah, he's just clarifying this post essentially about the Florida Bitcoin reserve, saying he's going to be doing a deep dive on our bill for everyone this coming week. Just because a bill is tabled doesn't mean it's dead. There are multiple ways to get language into budget bills, which are currently being worked on right now. So the person in the outside, the bill seems dead, but for those on the inside, we have another month to keep pushing. So they have to do some adjustments. They have to move some things around, it looks like. And honestly, the longer these things take to actually make happen, the better I feel about my entry points on Bitcoin. Because the system, if you understand credit markets, the amount of money that's underwater in banking infrastructure as it sits right now, and the $7 trillion in debt that the U.S. has to refinance over the course of the year, are they going to do it at higher interest rates? No, they're not. They're going to lower interest rates to refinance into that massive amount of debt. And as the system keeps printing and keeps obfuscating the rules to make the system keep working, the better Bitcoin becomes. For the average person on the outside looking in, seeing their dollar value being devalued constantly, that's where the real conversation, and that's the easiest way to get people to understand Bitcoin, is for them to first understand inflation and the Federal Reserve printing. Across the pond, we have a little bit of more headwinds for Bitcoin, as the UK Treasury Economic Secretary Emma Reynolds has now ruled out a national Bitcoin reserve, calling it not appropriate for our market. They have the micro rules already. Now, TJ, did you find it interesting that they put the micro rules and legislation together? They put the framework for CBDCs together, but then now Bitcoin is not good enough to fit in with CBDCs and overall stablecoins being used in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, is it weird? No, in the sense that, you know, a lot of the UK politics don't make a lot of sense to me. I don't pretend to know a ton about it, but from people that I do know from London, they say it's a total mess. So I think this is, again, a lot of political posturing. This is another self-own. I think this has to do, again, you know, kind of to what you were talking about before, of like resist Trump or resist anything that the US is trying to push forward right now. I think a lot of this probably, they also, you know, kind of sent a veiled threat over about some more tariff stuff. So I think this has a little bit more to do with that. And that's what's so interesting to me, is these politicians that are making these decisions these are the biggest self-owns of all time, like the governor of Arizona, or like what Germany did, selling all of their Bitcoin. This history won't look kind. These will not age well.
That's a massive amount of Bitcoin to sell at 50.
Oh, they completely, they'd be up billions of dollars right now if they held on to it.
You know, on that note, I think we're still in a bit of a hangover phase within the specific Bitcoin market, because although we have people like Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, which is the largest asset manager in the history of the markets, went from calling Bitcoin an index for money laundering only a few years ago to where we're at now. But now we have companies like Coinbase, which is IPO'd, is publicly traded. We have BlackRock, we have Fidelity, we have MasterCard getting into the fold. We're seeing across the board institutions get involved. And I'd love to show this commercial.
Yeah.
This is a follow-on that we saw from Coinbase yesterday. And I'm going to point some out here that's very interesting. Just check out what they say.
Yeah, full screen that if you can too. Yeah, this played in the NBA last night.
Every day, the Fed prints an average of $465 million. That's 26,000 shipping containers a year, created out of thin air. Maybe that's why the dollar loses value over time. But there's one thing they can never print more of: Bitcoin. At the size of a quarter, this is all there will ever be. Shouldn't a store of value hold its value?
Now, the interesting about this is not only are we seeing financial, we're seeing products and services and, you know, publicly traded companies, large asset managers pushing products. They're talking about, you know, the destruction of the dollar. I talked about this other day here on Discover Crypto. When people look at real estate investing, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't go buy a house, but people think that the value of your house is appreciating over time, not realizing that that's a very small account for that valuation going up. Maybe if you're in an area where there's a lot of new buying coming in, a little bit of that valuation is going up because of that, but mostly it's the devaluation of the dollar. So they're talking about this, the devaluation of the dollar. And the next tweet right below this, look at this: breaking, the Fed just purchased $20 billion in 3-year bonds. They're injecting liquidity to avoid rate cuts. So we have different mechanisms now that we're seeing it that are getting deployed in markets. It's not just money printer, which inevitably will come in the US as well, but also what's known as stealth QE, which is, you know, buying bonds, the basically buyback programs, a reverse repo market, all these different mechanisms that we're seeing inject liquidity into the markets. So I think right now is we should all just be going like this and saying, thank you, Lord, baby Jesus. And Bitcoin, if you're aware of what's going on, even at the most minuscule level, you are ahead of 7 billion people on the planet right now. And we should be so ultimately thankful that the price is not running away yet. It's like, I still get to stack at this price. Thank God. Hallelujah. That's what I'm feeling.
Like, we see the bearish news, you know, like the Florida, the North Carolina potential, Arizona yesterday, holding off on the Bitcoin reserve. Honestly, the longer that this dying system tries to put bandages over itself, the better off I am as a Bitcoin and crypto investor. That's flat out the baseline of it. Bitcoin has become this black hole of monetary value where all things are being sucked into it. And yet, when we do finally see a Bitcoin reserve for any major nation, that event is going to be a cataclysm for any nation that doesn't put out their own Bitcoin reserve and bit bonds. Bit bonds, imagine the yield on a bit bond. You know,
they're coming. Bit bonds are coming. I'm talking to people about it regularly. It's gonna happen, and this is part of why some of this regulation is important, like getting these laws passed to make this stuff possible. But it's absolutely happening. Bitcoin-backed debt is going to be a thing. That's what BlackRock is so interested in. When you have somebody like Larry Fink out there saying it's going to 700K, it's because he knows something. You know, when you've got the United States saying that we want to make a strategic Bitcoin reserve, they know they want to back their debt with assets. They know that. That's why they want to do it. They don't just throw these things out there with an end game. So if a major nation gets Bitcoin backed bonds, which again is going to happen, it will happen in the near future. I would say potentially in the next 5 or so years, maybe 5 to 10, but probably much sooner than people think. It will. The black hole is the perfect analogy. Like you said, it will swallow all other capital. It will absorb so much of the capital markets, just like the U.S. debt has already done. It was a stable, revenue generating, somewhat reliable form of debt. That's what people are talking about, being so excited that MicroStrategy could get ranked as institutional grade debt, which would send it even higher. And so seeing the performance of just something like MicroStrategy, or I got to stop calling it MicroStrategy, strategy, that's going to be hard to
I
break.
know. I still can't do it.
Yeah. So strategy or strategy B, I don't even know which one's the right way to do it.
It's beyond strategy now, because you have strategy. Now you're getting it deployed the same thing on MetaPlanet, which has seen an absolute boom. Then you see similar scientific stacking. You see GameStop. We're seeing, and it's not just these that are hitting the headlines. You can look at the list of institutions that have been stacking. And here's the interesting part. It's not just getting Bitcoin on their treasury. We're also seeing massive buys when you look at the different institutional holders of Bitcoin ETFs. So and beyond that, then you have Vanguard, which has been so against owning Bitcoin, but now they're forced to own a Bitcoin proxy because it's part of those stock market indexes. I think they're up to $1 billion worth of strategy holdings now, which means even though they're somewhat against, we're not going to serve as Bitcoin and ETFs, well, they have $1 billion worth of strategy stock now as well. But also Dark Side, which we should get him on the channel, because he speaks so much about these bit bonds, and actually speaks about how good they are of a product, that it's actually a little bit of a threat to the system, because once people really start, as you were saying, TJ, it's going to swallow up capital that could unwind other parts of the bond market and other parts of those treasuries and stuff like that. So there's a lot on the horizon. But Jim Cramer says there's no way we're ever going to get 500,000. We're never going to get 1 million. So, I mean, if he says it, what does it mean?
Yeah, I mean, I need Jim to remain bearish for as long as humanly possible. Like, we need to convince Jim Cramer that Bitcoin is literally going to zero. And, talking about this break point for the system and this bit bonds moment, and I agree with TJ, it's probably 5 or 10 years from happening. That's when the real crescendo moment comes. And we have, what I would call absolutely a Bitcoin insider, the former CEO of Binance, bringing up his price prediction for Bitcoin this cycle. Let's listen to what he has to say.
What do you think the price of Bitcoin tops at this cycle?
Again, very difficult question.
I don't hear it. You hear it?
Oh, it's not coming over?
Are you unmuted on your screen? Or
Here, I'll do it again here, because I have to show this.
I had the audio. I was wondering if it was muted on your computer.
Let's see here.
Check that volume button right there on the screen.
We got to turn it up on this thing. Let's
there
listen.
You go.
This is crazy.
Okay. What do you think the price of Bitcoin tops at this cycle?
Again, very difficult question. Somewhere between 500K to 1 million, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
He just busted out laughing.
Very difficult, immediate 500K to 1 million.
This cycle is what he's saying too.
Yeah.
500,000 to $1 million.
Makes me look not bullish enough when I say 220.
That's like the first person I've seen be more bullish than you.
But Drew, the question here though, and I think this is where it's really confusing people. Everybody's looking that there must be this exact 4-year cycle. And so at the end of the day, does this cycle mean that it's going to happen sometime in the next 12 months? Does it mean that this cycle maybe is extended into 2026, maybe even beyond? If we get all these scheduled buys coming from nations, what do you think this means?
I was thinking about that too. I think, and by the way, just for context, if you guys are new, that was CZ, founder of Binance, probably one of the top influential people in this space.
One of the richest.
Definitely one of the richest. Multi-billionaire. I think when somebody like him looks at a cycle, what they're talking about is before the next halving. So I don't think they're necessarily saying 4-year cycle theory within 12 months of the last halving. He means before 2028 is what he means. I think. Now I can't speak for him, but my guess would be a cycle is, now everybody has their way of defining when to sell in a cycle, but the cycle is the halving cycles, in my opinion.
But when to sell matters a lot, right?
Yes.
And in Bitcoin, for me, it's like honestly a preference of never selling Bitcoin. Simply just selling altcoins, getting in altcoins low, selling them, buying a house at a low interest rate, holding on to that. We need, we're going to be rolling out the Discord, and I'm going to be dropping basically daily analysis on top indicators as we progress through the year to make sure that we don't get caught holding them when we should have folded them in terms of altcoins and other types of crypto products outside of Bitcoin. Right now on the Pi cycle top indicator, it does appear that we have plenty of room to run here. So this is the 111-day moving average in the red, paired with the green, which is the 350-day moving average times 2. The very interesting thing about the Pi cycle top indicator is not just that it crosses at perfect peaks in basically every single Bitcoin cycle, as you can see, but it also calls the peak in terms of buying power for Bitcoin. This is how many homes you get per Bitcoin being at its peak, not how many dollars you get. And this is where we get a little bit skewed because our dollar continues to be inflated at a very aggressive rate. So understanding the true peak of buying power is super, super important. Pi cycle top indicator actually called this perfectly on April 16th of 2021, where we hit $64,000 in terms of fiat, but in terms of how many homes you get per Bitcoin, it was at its true peak. And now in our current range, because of how much money they have printed from the last cycle till now, we had to essentially break $80,000, $82,000 per coin to be breaking above previous all-time highs. That is where the Pi cycle top indicator, a lot of the metrics that Kelly uses are going to be very, very important to keep an eye on in terms of, are we going to hit 500K to $1 million this cycle? In order to hit $1 million Bitcoin, we need to grow to a $20 trillion market cap.
Well, on that note, coming over here to this screen, this is a Bitcoin value map from the Rational Root. He's got this great platform, and this shows, and this does not mean it's the top, but I want you to notice here on the value map, this has hit this upper band each time. Not only did it hit it, it continued to find support and push up, and you see this arcing to the upside. If we went directly up and just topped out and came directly back down, that's currently right now at about $154,000. And that's if we don't get any sort of parabolic continuation to the upside. That's if we just went straight up, it topped and it came down. So, and this is kind of in line with what I've been identifying on the actual Bitcoin chart, showing it. I think it's, let me zoom out on this just a little bit, 3-day chart. Boom, there we go. Now zooming out on this, double click here. I just want you to notice this is a 2.618 extension to this point right here. If we hit one more 2.8 extension, that would put us up here at about $165,000. And yet again, I think, and we've talked with Kevin Svensson about this, Matthew Highland over on BitLab Academy. We talk every Mondays on that channel, and we're feeling that it's more likely than having just a parabolic, just absolute moonshot. I think we're going to get this beautiful stair-step pattern up like we've been having, especially once we start getting some of this stablecoin legislation. We start getting banks deploying Bitcoin and Bitcoin ETF services to all their people, not just going out to the stock market to buy it. And you also see nation states stacking in. I think we are in for some ultimate bullishness. But then again, what's going on with the alts? Everybody's wondering, when are the alts going to rip? Well, I'm here to tell you, we're starting to see a very beautiful pattern here. Beautiful pattern with this inverse head and shoulders. And this would even be substantiated with even a little bit more pullback on the alts down to about this level. TJ and I were looking at this morning, which would be well within this basically golden box zone right here. But anywhere in this area would be a beautiful reversal pattern setting up for another leg to the upside. But we got to talk about the major alt news with Ethereum. So I'll throw it back to you. We could talk about ETH and what it means for the rest of the market.
Well, the PETRA upgrade is set for May 7th. Here, I'll see if I don't know if I'm sharing the right screen. I'll present this because I got to get the right one here. Bam. All right. So the PETRA upgrade going live. The upgrade expected to improve scalability on Ethereum network, and basically eagerly anticipated by a lot of devs and fans of Ethereum. The upgrade, though, may also lead to greater volatility in the near term. I think ETH's got volatility regardless of if this upgrade was going on or not. Many traders see the volatility as a bullish indicator, expecting the price of ETH to ultimately rise in May following the successful completion of this upgrade. It should improve the blockchain scalability and the validator operations. Basically, crypto enthusiasts have been waiting for more than a year on this upgrade. The impending upgrade scheduled for tomorrow. They're hoping it's going to make its, increase the maximum Ethereum validator, from 32 to 2048.
Yeah.
That's something.
Well,
Let me ask you guys this, because I'm right here with Richard Polanco. I hope I didn't butcher that too much.
Yeah.
Please don't talk about ETH. I need some therapy. I feel that feeling so hard. A lot of people have some very heavy ETH bags right now. I do not want to see another breakdown of like, oh, when Bitcoin hit 100K ETH the first time, ETH was this price. When it hit 100K the second time, it was this price. Third time, fourth time, fifth time. We're coming up on the sixth time, and it's going down on ETH every single time. Can you give me some bullish hopium for Ethereum soon?
Well, I think it's more about the total value locked in tokenized assets. I think RWAs are the crescendo, and on top of DeFi, we really haven't seen the ability for banks to get fully involved with DeFi yet. But on top of that, real world assets surpassed $22 billion. It's up 10% over the past 30 days, and Ethereum is in the charge. The lead of this was 6.5 billion of that. And Ethereum's TVL in RW has actually increased by 30% in the last 30 days.
Well, not to mention the Biddle Fund with BlackRock, because I think it's like a little over $2.5 billion, and 2.3 billion of that is on ETH.
Right.
But I will say, bullish, this might not sound bullish, but when you understand these markets, I think it is. The Petra update tomorrow. We also have the FOMC meeting tomorrow. I do expect volatility on most assets, up and down. But along with that, with ETH specifically, because of the upgrade, you can see here, Coinbase to suspend Ethereum withdrawals on this date. What date is this? This is actually tomorrow. So this is actually, I actually find this good. This does suggest that there's going to be some opportunity tomorrow. And if you're aware of things like this, then if you see the price action doing something that others are scared of, you know that it might be presenting a pretty darn good opportunity. I would also, I don't want to say hesitate, but I would allow a little bit of the volatility to play out tomorrow, because sometimes with upgrades, you might have some issue. But remember, ETH is the largest ecosystem outside of Bitcoin in the crypto sphere. So if we get a little bit of volatility tomorrow, remember that price on the speculative market does not always directly translate to this project good, this project bad. Sometimes the narrative's over here, and you see the liquidity flow in these other assets like SUI and Say, and what you're seeing with Cardano and Avalanche. The list goes on a bit Tensor Tau. It doesn't mean that everything is just dead over here. It just means the speculative narrative is over here for the time being. I still think Ethereum's going to perform well this cycle.
I agree. And to come back to what Aaron is saying here, remember to buy when everybody else is fearful.
100%.
When everybody's talking about it going under. 100%. And you guys made a lot of good points. I do want to kind of come to a couple of these. Here's the numbers there on BlackRock. This one right here. BlackRock, 2.7 billion on Ethereum, some on Aptos, some on Avalanche, a little bit on Polygon, which is layer two, and
heavily weighted for
92% of what's currently being tokenized is happening on Ethereum. I do think stablecoins and DeFi both run through Ethereum. You need Ethereum to really do a lot of what people are getting excited about. And then this was actually pretty bullish to me too. Seeing that the supply on exchanges is at a 9-year low, like that's actually pretty significant. That means, if somebody asks if this is bearish or bullish or bearish, it's bullish, because if it's not on exchanges, it means it can't be sold. So here's the balance here coming down. And so I am still a major Ethereum holder. I have not given up hope yet. I just need I need some of those hopium hits.
Well, here's Here's a good
engaged.
metric. I saw yesterday that the accumulation addresses, by the way, on-chain data and blockchain, for those of you that don't believe in it, you're missing out something incredible because it's so different than stock market where you're waiting for quarterly earnings. You get audits basically however long that block size is, that's how quick. So Bitcoin, every 10 minutes, you get to see all the different size of wallets, who's buying, who's not, wallets that are holding that are accumulators versus short-term holders. With Ethereum, the long-term holder accounts, the accumulation addresses have increased their holdings in the last very short period of time, in the last several weeks, by 22%. So the strength, the strong hands in the market have been stacking in, while the speculative FOMO, hope, fear, all this, these types of market participants, they're not seeing the forest for the trees. We got the Biddle fund stacking in, accumulation addresses stacking. The strength of this market in terms of what you're seeing on the price on exchange is not directly reflective of the fundamental data that you can look to that is showing bullishness going into the mid to long term.
And on the regulatory framework, you have Paul Atkins now leading the SEC.
Yes.
So I mean, Paul Atkins comes from Securitize, which is tied into the rollout of Biddle, and a lot of these real world asset applications. Paul Atkins is actually where a lot of Hester Pierce's talking points and her experience is coming from. So we have both of them now with high ranking positions within the SEC. Once we get past this cannon fodder with Democrats versus Republicans, and they can come to a conclusion on this stablecoin bill, by God, I hope they can, do so, because there's a reason that the United States needs to use RWAs, tokenized treasuries, to continue the expansion of offloading treasuries to the rest of the world. They have to keep the system rolling. They have to keep the inflows going. The system in the design of tokenized treasuries works. There's billions of dollars that have been coming into that even before we've gotten the complete green light. Like, yes, this is totally fine. Go have at it. And a lot of the Ethereum fear, I think it sounds the same as the Salana fear when Solana was $9-10.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's never coming back. FTX killed it. All this sort of stuff. It can never recover. Yeah.
Right. It was very down. And then look what Solana did. Like, even just pumped up fund, the meme coin production spot on Solana has generated $294 million in fees just in 2025 so far, surpassing Ethereum's fees this year of 250. So, things move really, really quickly. Sentiment can change very, very quickly. Right now, the sentiment on the fear and greed index is coming in at right about 50. Let's go take a look at this a little bit closer, because this, honestly, I love this graph. It's almost like a W pattern that we've built out, dipping twice into the max fear zone over the past month or two here. We dipped down to about 15, 17 on the fear and greed, and everyone was very, very fearful. They were selling their bags. They were getting out of harm's way. Rather than that, I just leaned more, and it's not necessarily ETH that I'm bearish on. It's the upside to base ecosystem products that are using ETH. So obviously, I think ETH is going to continue operating and continue, being a chain that is preferred for RWAs and DeFi. I'm just finding great upside on the base ecosystem.
Well, Drew, let me ask you a key question, though. Key question regarding altcoins. Do you think that in order to get this sort of the notion of the alt season that people are still hoping and expecting at some point this cycle, do you think that's going to be somewhat held at bay based on what Ethereum does? Or because we're seeing XRP is very large market cap now, and we're seeing other coins also, growing market caps. Do you think it's going to be happen or not based on what ETH does, or is it possible without ETH having a big run?
I think it is, ETH, here's the run that I think is going to happen for ETH. I think that we are going to see right around 100 to 150% move against Bitcoin. This is ETH to Bitcoin. I am not targeting for ETH to run 700% against Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin show. But I am looking for a tap to this downward trend line. And honestly, I use these downward trend lines on altcoins compared to Bitcoin to jeet out of them every single time. And most of the time it works. So really, if we see Bitcoin rise to $150,000 in tandem with the dominance falling, and I see Ethereum run by 100% against that evaluation, then you're looking at something, in the 5, 6, maybe even up to $10,000 Ethereum. And that's not a bad upside compared to its current price right now. And so, using these pairing charts, I will emphasize again, I know I said it yesterday, but have them, whatever your favorite biggest altcoin holding is, put it right in front of the Bitcoin pair on the trading view, and keep an eye on that on the weekly, because it's going to be very, very important to understand, to know when to fold them over the course of
And
this next year.
I agree with what Steve-O said here too. ETH is too huge. It has both Metcalfe's law and Lindy effect to, going for it to fail. It's got a lot of brand recognition. It's it's always compared right next to Bitcoin when they show tickers on major streams. They talk about Bitcoin, they talk about Ethereum. So I agree. Lindy effect is basically the longer something exists, the more likely it is to remain, to survive and remain relevant. Time is a big factor, especially when you're talking about big money and institutions. Uptime, lack of major problems with it. That's kind of, and we haven't really talked too much about the kind of knots thing going on with Bitcoin right now, of the debate of should we make this internal programming change.
The OP return.
Yeah, the OP return versus
I
knots.
feel like something in that regard passed, where they're changing the data size. I think it
I'd have
passed.
to look into it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But the question here, though, it goes back to the title of this video, is with the insider, with CZ calling for potentially 500,000 to $1 million Bitcoin. And this is a chart here from Quentin Francois overlaying the.
Yes, I saw
everybody's
that same
seen
chart.
this. Do you guys agree that maybe
Yes.
we're about here? Because some people look at this and they think that we're at the euphoria stage already, and they've called the top, and this is just a dead cat bounce. I'm more of the opinion like this, that we are here.
I think we are there. That's exactly. I agree. Something like you said, a lot of people are saying, we've already topped, or maybe we're in the middle of that, relief bounce afterwards.
Yeah.
But no, I think, look, I've been doing this for long enough, and I really feel like this is going to be a bull run that blows people away. The people are not expecting. I do think we got our knees cut out from us last time through FTX, through a lot of the stuff that was going on. I think BlackRock, by the way, BlackRock, Morgan Stanley, Fidelity, these major, Goldman Sachs, these major institutions have been studying these markets for a long time.
Yeah, it's been bullish since 2021.
Well, that's my point. They've been studying it since before then. They made the decision that this is the future in 2020, and they put the brakes on the bull run in 2021, and they kept us from having a true blow off top like we've experienced in the past. This next blow off top that we get, I think, is going to, which is why I'm very, I feel a lot of conviction for at least a $200,000 Bitcoin, which again, and every day that goes by, week that goes by, the predictions keep getting higher. My 200K starts to sound conservative. Everybody was saying I was crazy 6 months ago when the top people were like, maybe 120, maybe 150. And I'm like, no, 200, give or take 20 either side. 180 to 220 range is where I think we're going to be going this year. Now people are saying 300K, people are saying 500K, $1 million. And I really believe BlackRock put the big money, call it BlackRock, call it institutions, call it nation states, sovereign wealth funds, whatever you want to call it, but big, old, institutional, real wealth that shapes the world tried to slow this thing down last times. And a lot of times they use the law, regulation, and bureaucrats to do that, which is why it's still happening. They slowed it down so that they could get positioned and get proper entries. They don't really care about the price that they're getting in at, because they know it's going dramatically higher. They care more about setting up legal framework, about setting up businesses, about making licensure important so that they can own the banks, they can own the exchange. They wanted to get Binance pushed out of the US. They wanted to make sure they had a stake. Go look at what BlackRock and Vanguard's been doing. They own Coinbase. They own Robinhood. They own probably a stake in Kraken. They own MicroStrategy. Every major Bitcoin company is majority owned by BlackRock.
Right.
At this point.
And just a side
that
note,
happened in the very recent past. Now that all that stuff's done, they've got their board seats set up. They've got their equity positions set up. They've got their their revenue producing system set up. Now it's time to send it for all their friends and pat themselves on the back and tell themselves how genius.
And Free Rich actually says here, with everything that we have coming, this does not even consider that we haven't even started printing yet. I mean, like what we're looking at going into the future.
Something that TJ said to me this week, and you've been mentioning it a few times, TJ, this 8-year cycle potential for Bitcoin, because ETFs just went live. We have BlackRock out there comparing Bitcoin directly to gold. And currently we see a major secondary flight to gold. I mean, gold is at $3,400 an ounce right now. But when the ETF for gold came out, it was 2004. And it took 2,926 days to really see a substantial pullback in price on gold once the ETFs went live. Now, gold market cap is right around $20 trillion. And so if we see a competitive nature of Bitcoin to gold on a monetary level, that does equal that $1 million Bitcoin. So the real fear here is that it is going to end up being like this 8-year super cycle. And what TJ was talking about last cycle, I mean, to a degree, we had a double top, we had a lot of printing, but we performed to the top end of the Fibonacci from the previous high to the low. We did hit smack dab in the middle of that top fib. The top end of this fib actually lands right there in that $200,000, $250,000 level.
Nice.
Why I'm being cautious is just because we are stumbling at the same time frame as last cycle, at the same amount of 30% pullback, but at a lower Fibonacci sequence. We're in the blue zone rather than the red zone. Thus, this is for me, just, because I'm not selling the Bitcoin that's sitting in the background.
Right.
But I'm thinking in terms of when to sell the altcoins. I am more so just right behind TJ. I'm like in this purple zone right here, looking for about 170, maybe 180.
So I was gonna say, what's the top of that purple?
Top of the purple is right at $200,000.
Okay.
Right. So that is essentially where I'm also, just looking at the design of how long Bitcoin dominance has lasted. We're at 140 days past norm on Bitcoin dominance. We've never been more here to stay than we are right now with Bitcoin. Nation states are going to be moving towards their reserves. And, sure, the UK says no to Bitcoin, but they say yes to CBDCs. That's just going to further push people towards owning their own value, their own Bitcoin, and a item that has actual mathematical scarcity rather than a CBDC, which can, just like the fiat currency, be printed into oblivion, but on top of that, be controlled and turned off should you start misbehaving on a freedom of speech level. Like we've seen in the UK, they've arrested people over memes. What's to say that the UK people are going to feel comfortable with trusting a CBDC and then realizing they can't purchase goods at the store? So, I know we already talked about Arculus, but if Bitcoin wasn't able to be held in self-custody, banks would have already killed it. They would have found a route to go after the centralized spot and take it out because it's a competitor to the existing system. This is why it's so important.
Just like they did with Silicon Valley Bank and Silvergate
100%.
Bank. The two banks that were banking most of the crypto industry at a major level, they cut them off at the knees, and they basically sacrificed them not that long ago. I mean, it was really sad to see people that have poured their lives into building a great business. They basically used regulation to kill those things and pick up all of their assets on pennies on the dollar with taxpayer money. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it was aggravating for me to see Circle or the USDC amount of value that was held at SVB. It was like a few $1 billion. I think it was like $3 billion, but it dropped the price of
10%. It was 10% of their
crazy,
reserves,
right? And that was very concerning to see USDC snap crash to 87 cents. It did recover pretty quickly. But on the Bitcoin core, movement to the OP return, we just got to highlight it. They just announced that they will likely be removing the OP return limit in their next release, which is a massive win for Bitcoin Runes tokens. This is something interesting. This may have played in to the larger cool down that we saw happen on Runes. Now that we see this OP return pulled away, it's might actually open the doors again for Runes. That is the interesting. It's like it's forcing Bitcoin to continue development. I guess it was like this happy, weird problem to see when I did see Runes get developed, because, Bitcoin, it's a store of value and it's here to stay, but it's really, really, something that I've been kind of excited to see how disruptive Runes can be. But at the same time, maybe there's a better place where we just leave Bitcoin as the store of value and then have the other ecosystem projects kind of playing into that. This is where it comes in, like, Bitcoin is the groundwork for new monetary policy. And on top of that, we're going to have smart contracts that can handle real estate notes, vehicle title notes. All of the information and data that we share in our current structure of Web 2 can be automated and quickened and actually end up saving these firms hundreds of billions of dollars over the long term by automating the process, by using smart contracts to actually verify that data. And now that we see this conflict within the United States and China on a tariff level right now, you bet your bottom dollar that conflict has also been at a data level as well over the past 20 years. And that's where the hardening of our current infrastructure and the reasoning why the system needs to upgrade really comes to play. It's great to have all these crypto options, and yeah, you can send encrypted crypto back and forth, and that's safe. But if there wasn't a broken system and a lack of trust between nation states, there would be no major reason to fix and overhaul the existing system. This is why it's so exciting to watch crypto and the advancements right now, the tug of war between the Democrats and the Republicans. It's entertaining, but at the end of the road, I think all roads lead to Bitcoin as the monetary value of the world.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of time.
Absolutely. It is a matter of time. It's kind of inevitable. I do want to talk about this. I've been kind of holding back on it for a couple of reasons. One, it's a Cardano thing, and it feels wrong to do some major Cardano news without our boy DZ here. But
yes,
we are talking about Bitcoin DeFi. I do believe Cardano and Bitcoin can work together to to bring Bitcoin DeFi in the future. The way that model works, Cardano is what's the best way to say it? Uniquely positioned to help Bitcoin do that. So there was this thing, Bitcoin OS. Now this was a demo. It was just a demo transaction, but they did send BTC to Cardano and back without a cross-chain bridge. So this is a little technical, a little nerdy. We're not going to get into a lot of the details, but the core of it is a demo transaction by Bitcoin OS, which is a company or a project, transfer Bitcoin BTC to the Cardano blockchain and back to the Bitcoin blockchain without using a cross-chain bridge. True interoperability. Bitcoin OS new XBTC token extends how Bitcoin could be programmable, opening DeFi and cross-chain use. The tech removes custodial risks associated with the traditional bridge solutions. And that's kind of the claim of Bitcoin OS. Now, this is not, I know a lot of maxis would probably still say, oh, it's not Bitcoin. But I would say this is a really big step in the right direction, specifically for Cardano. That's part of why I'm still bullish on Cardano's future, is because I do believe they will be able to kind of more or less operate as that smart contract layer for Bitcoin. I believe in what Charles' vision for decentralization. And everything that they've done, they've always put the long term ahead of the short term. Even things like we were just talking about Circle and stable coins, and he really understands the power you give Circle and Tether when you bring them to your chain, and all of your DeFi apps are built around their support, and then they get to kind of pick and choose. If a fork happens, they kind of pick who the winner is.
Yeah, their constitutional design is better than I've seen on any other
on most chains. You know, Charles and IOHK and a lot of the developers over on Cardano, they've done a lot of things right. And if they are able to solve this thing for Bitcoin, it could be an incredible step forward for both projects to really, if we could get Bitcoin native DeFi going, and not have to use cross-chain bridges.
That's the attack vector, right? That's where we see
bridges.
All the attacks
a lot of times are wrapped Bitcoin is what what happens a lot on Ethereum, which is not. It's pretty secure, but it's not without attack vectors. There's always attack vectors on all of these things on some way, shape, or form. So it's going to be about making it work, getting some time, testing it, but it is coming. DeFi on Bitcoin is coming. That's part of what will allow Bitcoin to be the black hole that you mentioned. It's already the black hole when it comes to storing value, just like that Coinbase ad we played shows.
That was crazy. How many, like thousands of shipping containers full of cash
a day?
A day.
And
that's where, like, where's the cap? Where's the top for Bitcoin? There is no top, because there is no top to government printing.
People don't believe me when I tell them that they've quadrupled the money supply in the last 10 years. Like they think you're just a crazy Bitcoiner. I'm like, no, go look it up. It's happened. They doubled it, and then they doubled it again in a very short amount of time. And you wonder why everything got more expensive. It didn't. It just it costs exactly what it used to cost. There's just a bazillion more dollars in circulation now, and they have way less buying power.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, people, they'll use the argument of real estate's better than Bitcoin, but guess what? The government's using your tax dollars to artificially keep homes off the market to try to keep their prices from collapsing, right? Because the banks have hundreds of billions of dollars in debt on a lot of commercial and residential real estate. And if they see a massive inventory release on a free market that can do it at once, and they can't use your tax dollars to artificially keep those homes off the market, guess what? All those banks go under. This system is built on a house of cards that's behind a veneer of federal bailouts. And, you know, the last bailout we had, 2023, it was bank term funding program. It wasn't funny money airdrops to the average person. I think that, you know, as people realize that our government is literally working on a Bitcoin strategic reserve, as they see a few states start to move forward, Roswell, New Mexico, apparently the aliens got to New Mexico and said, yes, Roswell, the city, already has a Bitcoin reserve. So we're starting to see it pop up here and there. But of course, they roll out, you can pay your taxes in Bitcoin first because they want to steal the thing that has true intrinsic data value over the next century from you at a low price so that you will pay your taxes in a voluntary manner to the state. Right.
That's right.
It's so crazy to think about that. Now, this chat is going on inch. You know, there are things that Trump could do that would make me not support him also. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things he could do. As long as I see that there's a wish to continue American dollar dominance and do it without having to send aircraft carriers, I'm for it. You know what I mean? I'm tired. I've grown up in a generation that's, you know, honestly, we're around 2001. I went to mechanical engineering school. I've known a lot of lies in my life, and it's nice to see a little bit of that veil be pulled back. Now, Bitcoin is running up here. It looks like we're trying to hit that 95 spot again.
Yeah, it's making some moves.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, Matt. I was telling him, I was like, I feel like we're going to take a bounce when I was working out, but I wasn't in front of the charts. He got it like 93.5 or something like that.
Nice.
That's a 1.2% move on Bitcoin in a very short amount of time. So we are trying to make a move to the upside.
Both Drew and I were talking about taking a long right before the show started.
That's the pain of doing content,
and we didn't just for you guys, or at least for me. I know I do not pay good attention to what's going on the show when I have an open trade. I just can't stop staring at it. So I was like, it's probably not good for me to open a trade. I'll just be watching that the whole time, and I'm not listening to what they're saying. And then you guys asked me a question, and I'm like, what were you talking about?
Well, we got to answer intelligently. We got to be locked in. I got to go through all the Democrat senators that we got to reach out to. We have to do the research. And
yeah, they're ranting. They're actually live ranting right now. Maxine Waters on her thing. But real quick, we'll wrap it up with this. We got a lot to get to today. I know, Drew, you've got your show a little bit later on. But our friend Alex Becker, for those that are altcoin holders, if you don't hold a lot of Bitcoin and you're down bad on altcoins, I just wanted to leave you with this little hopium here. Alt season will happen. Most will be sidelined, and by late, we will make absurd amounts of money and dump on their heads. It is written. Ignore naysayers. Their money will be our money soon. Gotta love that energy.
Boom.
There will be altcoins that perform well at a certain point in the cycle. You should still get as much Bitcoin as you possibly can. I saw somebody ask that earlier. How much Bitcoin should you get? The answer is always as much as you can. If you ask anybody that has a ton of Bitcoin, if they have enough or how much Bitcoin they have, the answer is always not enough. Wish I hadn't sold it. Accumulate Bitcoin. Don't sell it. You'll be able to lend against it later. If you want to be the one with the bit bonds, the ones backing governments, the ones ruling your local community, just buy and hold Bitcoin.
That's right.
Not that
simple
hard.
equation. Yeah. Simple equation.
I love you guys. Happy. Have a good rest of your day. Hit the like button on the way out. Let us know what your Bitcoin goal is in the comment. Is it 0.1? Is it 0.01? Is it 1? Is it 10? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? Maybe you're trying to be like Michael Saylor. You're trying to get to 10% of the supply, 1% of the supply. Let us know. Hey, if you're trying to buy 100,000 Bitcoin, I definitely want to know who the F you are.
How should you hang out?
Yeah, get in our Discord, trade on our L Bank.
Right.
We'll see you guys.